Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Mindful Minute. It's your girl Gabby. I'm back today to talk about a topic that, from what it seems like, I don't think I've ever discussed here on this podcast. So buckle up and let's go through this journey together. If you're watching on my YouTube, then I'm sorry to say that this will be the first episode video-wise that has been posted to YouTube for the podcast. It only hit me now that I could put video up on YouTube with the podcast. So if you want to hear the other episodes, you just gotta click that link in the description and you can, make sure that you can catch up to where we are now, versus, the previous seasons, since those aren't on, the previous season and the previous episodes, which aren't on YouTube. So I'm sorry about that. It's on me. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about how bullying changed my mindset. I don't think I ever really discussed this on the podcast because it really did have a major impact on my life and me as a whole. And so I feel like it's really necessary to share that with you guys, because you might be trying to figure it out for yourself. You might be thinking you're alone in the situation, but the truth is you're really not. You're not alone in the situation of being bullied or feeling like this is all it is and that you're the only person dealing with it. So I feel like it's necessary for me to share this. So just wanted to say that and let you all know what the vibes are. So let's get into it. When I was a little girl back in middle school, I was bullied really badly. And it really, as a young girl, I never really noticed how much bullying really did impact me as a whole, because I feel like at 10 years old, the 10-year-old version of me didn't know how to stand up for herself. The 10-year-old version of me didn't know how to defend herself or how to really speak up and say no, this isn't okay and this is how it's making me feel, and to really kind of fight back against what people were saying to me, saying about me, I should say, mostly, because I didn't know those things. You're not expecting to. And I don't want to say you're not expecting to be bullied, because listen, at the end of the day, everybody has a bully story. Everybody has been bullied. I don't want to sit here and say oh, I wasn't expecting to be bullied. Everyone's bully story is so different from another person's. And so I feel with that being said, it's important to know that just because this is my story of what happened when I was a little girl doesn't mean that you now, as a woman or a man or anybody that associates as either one, you're gonna have a different situation. And maybe the situations might be similar, but it's just really about me giving you all advice and sharing my story. So that's really what it is. So in middle school, I was the first blind girl. Actually, no, I wasn't the first blind girl. I was the second blind girl that ever went to that school. And during my time, my fifth grade, the bullying really started in fifth grade, to be honest. It was never okay, it's gonna start sixth grade, seventh grade. It all started the minute I first started school there. And so I remember being in the class and people just saying a bunch of shit about me and talking crap and just basically being oh, she's the teacher's pet. And then I have a scar because I had had a surgery, and so people would make fun of it and tease me about it and basically point it out every single day as much as they possibly could, and try to bring attention to it and get everybody else in on oh, look at her, basically dance monkey dance, the song. And so the way I kind of was in that at that time, I was super vulnerable. I didn't know what tools were available to help me. I guess more so knowing how I could protect myself and my energy and my peace and try to figure out how to get away from these people. But it was such a difficult thing because I was in class with these people every day, and so I couldn't really like ignore what was going on. And girls would like have sleepovers to like bully me. Like that's literally what they would do. Like I remember one girl actually told me this. She's like, oh well, I only have sleepovers so like the girls and I could make fun of you. I was like, oh, okay. And I think, you know, at that point, that's when the isolation period really started, because the more that I would be bullied in class, the less that I'd want to actually go and sit in the cafeteria like everybody else, right? Like you're used to probably going downstairs, sitting in the cafeteria, having lunch with everybody, you know, maybe you don't socialize as much with everyone, but you still are there. I didn't do that because of the fact that I could be like bullied at any point. You know what I'm saying? Like there could be a whole bunch of situations that would come up, and I was just like, for my own well-being, I'd rather not do that. And also because I was really sad. Like I was really sad at that point, and I never told my family about it because I always was like, oh well, this is my battle. Like I'm the one that needs to take care of this because no one else is going to like, and it's not that no one else is going to fight it, but I really felt like in that time, and like now that I'm looking back, the reason I didn't really like share it when I came home from school with my family is because of the fact that I was like, oh, it's fine, like, you know, whatever, it's okay, like I'll be okay. But years later is when I really started like saying to everyone, like I was like, oh yeah, like I was bullied during that time, and it's not like a fun like, huh, yeah, great. It's more of like, I guess now's the time where I feel better and more comfortable to actually share it with people around me and in my life. And even like a person that I went to middle school with, like in 8th grade, because I was texting him a while ago and he was like, oh, like why didn't you ever tell me? And I was like, honestly, I didn't tell anybody that this was going on. And so I think that's when the isolation really started. I might be really loud in the microphone, so I'm sorry if that's the case here. So that's when like I really started isolating myself on like in school. So I wouldn't go to lunch with everybody else. I wouldn't like, you know, try to socialize. I wouldn't do any of that because I was just like, well, everybody's out to bully me. And that's really how it felt. Like going into it, I was like, everybody's out to bully me, and I don't really want to be surrounded by people. And so I would like go eat lunch, and like, because the way my middle school was set up, we had like complexes. So like there was like the 5th grade complex, and then you go over and there's like the 6th grade complex. In 5th grade, like I would just sit in the complex because they had like a little table, and I would like bring my own lunch. Like that's when I started, like I think I had like slightly mentioned it to my mom. That's when I started like bringing my own lunch, because like I would tell my mom every night, I'm like, Mom, like please, I really don't like going into the cafeteria. And because I wasn't telling her that I was being bullied, like she was like, why like why don't you like going in the cafeteria, what's going on? And I would just be like, oh, nothing, I don't like it, I don't like the food, which was true. Like I hated the food, it was nasty. So anything she made for dinner, like she'd put some aside for me for lunch, and I'd take it, and I had like all my snacks and stuff, I had my water, like I was set, right? And I would sit in the complex, and like the teachers would walk by and they'd be like, oh, like why aren't you downstairs? And I'm like, oh, because like I don't really want to be downstairs, I don't really, you know. And plus like I wasn't getting along with people either, especially the people that were in my class and like in my year. And so because of that, like I really just completely iced myself out. And the only time I went downstairs was to go to like, we had like a little like store thing in my middle school, so people could like go buy snacks, buy something to drink. So like I'd leave the complex just to go to the little store and get something, and then bring my ass back upstairs, because I'm like, I'm not hanging out down here. And I really was like a loner. Like it's the truth, I really was a loner. Like I didn't spend my time surrounded by groups of friends. I didn't spend my time socializing too much. The only time I was really like a social person was my gym class, because the way my gym class was set up, like I wasn't part of like the gym that everybody else went to, especially because like, you know, there's so many kids, and like they're running around and I'm like the blind girl, so like they were like, no, like she has to go to the other gym. So it was basically for people that had like different disabilities, I guess. I really like, I was like part of that gym, and I loved it because it was like, it was much more fun, and I actually like talked to people, and I was social, and like the gym teacher was pretty cool. And like that year is like, well, 6th grade was when I like met one of my best friends that like I'm still cool with, like we're still best friends to this day. She ended up leaving a year later, so it was like I was back to just being like me by myself. But the way I really kind of felt during that time was just like, I don't know, I feel like I've always been the type of girl that like, if before I tell anybody that like I'm being bullied or whatever, like I'll try to see if there's a way I could figure it out by myself. Because I went to the counselor one day and I was like telling her all these things, and honestly she didn't do anything to try to fix it. Like she'd call in the girls that were bullying me, and like we'd sit down and she'd try to have these little like intervention things that like never freaking worked, because what are you gonna do? Like, it's a middle school thing and people are being bullied, and like the guidance counselor is not doing shit to like try to help. And I feel like that made it worse because people would like, you know, it was not like a simple thing to just be like, oh yeah, go to the guidance counselor. Like I did all of that. 5th grade was bad because like I was bullied a lot, mostly, and just being called like a bunch of things, like the teacher's pet and all these other things. And I'm like, I'm not literally I'm not the teacher's pet. I'm far from the teacher being the teacher's pet. I don't even know why they thought I was the teacher's pet. Like, I wasn't. And then 6th grade was like a little bit better, because like, I don't know, but then there were still mean people in my class who like definitely still bullied me, and like the people that I did like try to hang out with, we only hung out mostly in like the study hall thing that we had. And like we were like a cool group of people. Like we'd spend our time together in study hall. But like if you're talking about like, oh, let's go outside during recess and hang out together, like that happened once in a blue moon. And so there was like a very select group of people that like during study hall like I'd see and I'd hang out with. And like some of those people were also in my other classes. And then like 7th grade started to get a little bit better, and like I wasn't being bullied at that point, but I was still isolating myself. Like I still didn't go into the cafeteria. I think I went in the cafeteria once. Like now that I'm thinking about it, I was in the cafeteria one time and that was it. And so basically 4 years of middle school, I was upstairs in the complexes just eating my lunch, talking to the teachers. And like I think that's why they thought I was the teacher's pet, maybe because of the fact that like the teachers got like, I became pretty cool with them, and like, you know, I'd have conversations with them, and I was fine with that because like my 6th grade teacher, like all my teachers were great. I might have had some more favorites over others, but I mean, that's not to say like the others weren't wonderful or like good teachers. I think it's just like, you know, that's just kind of because I got so used to like being so isolated and like no one really wanting to come and hang out with me and spend time with me. That sounds really sad. I just really like didn't try hard enough. And so I think like that was my biggest thing, was like me not trying hard enough to like even try to, and I did. Again, like keep in mind, like study hall was the time where I was like, you know, oh, like that person's really funny, and like we'd all make jokes together, and like they were pretty nice to me. Like I don't remember any of them really like being mean or bullying me or anything. And so, and I remember in 5th grade when I had a crush on this one guy, and like I told one of my friends, like the one girl that I was like, and keep in mind, like I'm 10 years old, what do I know about crushes? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, what the do I know about crushes? And I'm like, well, okay, I know that, right? And like, I don't know, it was so weird because like he knew that I liked him and whatever, and it was just so weird because like all of us are in 5th grade and everybody's like, oh, I like that person and I like this person, and I'm like, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, we were like 10 years old. Like what were we doing acting like we were like hot shit trying to like be out here? And like, and so 8th grade was like a lot better. Like I will say 8th grade was a lot like much more of a better experience for me, just because like in science class I had a few friends in science class, and like that's where I met one of the people that like I was texting probably like last year or whatever, and I was like, oh yeah, like we were just talking about stuff, and and I was like, oh yeah, well this happened in middle school for me, and that's when he was like, oh well, like why didn't you ever tell me? And I was like, oh, I really didn't tell anybody, but that's when I like started to like have a few friends or whatever, and keep in mind, like my best friend had already moved out of New York. Like her family wasn't living in New York anymore, so like I wasn't on the weekends when these girls and these people were out like doing shit, going to like the mall, because like where are we going at 10 years old and 11 years old? Like nowhere. They were like always out, and at that time like that's when like Facebook and crap like started to become like a big thing, I feel like. I mean, it was big, but like that's when like everybody had a Facebook. Like all the people I went to middle school with had a Facebook, and I only learned that many years later when I tried looking for people that like I genuinely wanted to like connect with on Facebook, and then I just stalk a bunch of other people's Facebooks because I was like, well, what is that person up to? The person that bullied me that day, like what are they doing with their lives? Nothing. 8th grade was a lot better because like the people I met in science class were like really cool, and we'd all like spend time together and hang out as much as we could like in class and whatever. But I still never made the decision to like go into the cafeteria. Like for those 4 years I really just like stayed in the complexes and just like did whatever I wanted to do. Like I really didn't care at that time about trying to make these things better for myself. But the Gabby now is a different person. Like I'm much more like, I know how to speak up for myself now, and also I'm better at like trying to communicate those things to other people. And I feel like if the Gabby that I am now was the Gabby that I was back then, I feel like I would have handled that so much more differently, because I would have said stuff. I would have tried my best to like fight back. I would have done all these things. 8th grade was like a much better experience for me. I feel like I was more open to like actually talking to people, and I feel like that didn't change the fact that I was like still in the complexes, hanging out, eating my lunch, chilling, and like I didn't have a phone at that point. Like it's sad to say, like I know a lot of people went through middle school and they had like a little cell phone or whatever. I think I had a like those little Nokia ones, they like flip up. I had one of those, but it wasn't anything too crazy. Are you a content creator who is looking for high quality sound effects and background music to use in your content, but you don't know where to look, so it's a bit frustrating? Trust me, I know the feeling, but Epidemic Sound is your one-stop resource to help you when it comes to content creation. I've been using Epidemic Sound since last year, and truthfully, it's been a big help when it comes to my own content creation, because they have varieties of options to choose from. So, to help you out and to help you to stop fussing and feeling overwhelmed over not finding copyright-free options to use in your content, I have a link linked below in the show notes and over on my Instagram at mindful.minute_ that will help you to get started with Epidemic Sound today. Trust me, it'll be such a great help when it comes to making content, because you won't feel frustrated anymore. So check it out and let me know what you think. So now I want to get into the whole mindset part of being bullied, and really just kind of like how it impacted my life moving forward, and just how I feel about it now as a 24-year-old. So of course, in those moments where I was being bullied, I really wasn't thinking about the mental aspects of it. I really wasn't looking at, oh, well, how is this impacting me mentally, and how am I feeling, when I really like am in those moments of being bullied. I know that it really did have an emotional impact on me. I was crying a lot. I was really just kind of like, I don't know, hesitant to really kind of let my guard down and allow people to be my friend. And so I think that a lot of the time when this happens to people think like, oh, that person's just being mean. They don't want to talk to me. They don't want to, be friends. That's not always the case. Sometimes when people are acting that way, it could be because of the fact that they were, treated some type of way. And so now it's a little bit harder for them to allow people to I can't talk today, y'all. I'm being honest. Like, it's not great. But when people are like this, it just means that sometimes, like, there could have been something that happened to them at a certain point where it makes it a little bit harder for them to feel like they can open up to other people and allow people in. And so I've been like that ever since I was a little girl. Like, it's still a difficult thing for me, but I'm trying to get better at it, because I think that even moving into high school, I carried that mindset with me from middle school that, like, oh, nobody's gonna like me. I'm gonna be fucking bullied again, and I'm gonna have to deal with it over and over and over again. And I was like trying to figure out how I could get out of that pattern, but it just wasn't working for me. And I feel like, of course, I wasn't bullied in high school because I had some great friends. Like, I'm still best friends with one of them to this day, and like her and I were always really, really close. But I think because I was in a mindset of like, oh, everybody fucking hates you and nobody wants to talk to you and no one wants to be your friend except one person that you met in gym class, which to this day I still ask her, girl, what is wrong with you? Like, what? But no, like, now I feel like, sorry, my mind is like always like going in like different directions, because I'll be like, oh, let's talk about this. So I'm trying to keep it on track, and then we'll shift. But I think, like, of course, I carried that mindset with me for such a long time, and I feel like it makes it harder for me to become friends with people. And I think now that I'm older, it's become a little bit easier, because now I feel like, and okay, let's just, like, to be honest, I feel like I've always been a super friendly person. Like, I don't think that's the problem. I think the problem is the fact that because I was bullied for basically like 3 years of my life in middle school, I didn't really know how to manage those feelings, mentally speaking. I didn't know how to manage those. And so, and even like the emotional way, like, I didn't know how to like really manage that. And so I carried so much of that mindset into the rest of my life, because that's what I knew. You're in middle school, you're thinking like, oh, okay, whatever. But I feel like that's the point in life where a lot of people get bullied. And to be honest, like, people could get bullied at any point in life. But I think, like, for so many of like the things that I tried to do social wise, I love being friendly. I love talking, and it's gotten a lot better. But I think that I always, because I was bullied because of my disability, I always kind of placed that over why someone doesn't talk to me, or why someone doesn't want to be my friend, or XYZ. And it's such a fucking toxic mentality, because it really doesn't help when I'm trying to, do what I love to do, which is content creation and really being a motivational speaker. Like, it's a difficult thing, but I feel like now that I kind of know how to kind of better manage those feelings, not 100%, but it's a lot better than what it used to be. I think now I'm trying to like talk myself down from that, like, don't even go there. Don't start saying that crap, because it's not true. And if it is true, like, that person clearly is not meant to be a part of your circle or a part of your life. And so I really try to like tell myself these things, because I am my worst critic. I always have been. And I think that it's really bad, because I always like people, even if people say like, oh, this is why it is, I'll find like 20,000 other reasons why it's like, that I should believe that person, or why, yeah, that this is why it is, like, it is because of your blindness or whatever. Like, I will find all those reasons to like try to like say, yeah, it's fine, but it's not. And so because I had that mindset from being such a young age, I think that it really doesn't help when I'm in the real world now trying to, go into content creation and be a motivational speaker and help other people out who are dealing with similar things or experiencing other things, And so I think that growing up, it really shifted my image of how I kind of am in social situations. And sometimes they say, like, sometimes in life, like, you'll get a certain sign that, like, oh, like, you're gonna have, I don't know, anxiety in the future or something. And I wish that, like, someone would have discussed mental health with me at a young age, because that wasn't a topic that we discussed in my household. Like, mental health is like, in certain cultures, it just isn't something that's discussed. And so oftentimes you kind of have to ignore what you're dealing with from the mental aspect, because like, it might be a little difficult to discuss it. And so if mental health was something that I kind of grew up knowing about, I feel like I would have been able to know that I would end up having anxiety, or know that I would end up, like, occasionally having panic attacks. But because I didn't know that, like, mental health was, like, a real thing, I didn't have the opportunity to try to figure out how can I like not be that way, or how can I like not talk about myself this way. But that's just how my brain works. I'm an overthinker. I overanalyze everything. I get anxious and I panic at times. And I feel like my mindset, of course, now is a lot different than who I was at 10 years old, 11 years old, 15 years old. But I think that a lot of it also still is ingrained in me because of how I was treated in school, in middle school mostly, and just kind of dealing with the fuckery that, like, it was, and really kind of trying to put all the pieces together, right? Like, now that I'm older, like, be like, oh, okay, well, you're not that girl anymore. You've obviously evolved and changed, and your mindset has shifted drastically since then, because you're older and we're always changing and evolving. But a lot of the things that I was told in that school at that time is still in my brain. And so when people are like, oh, don't talk about yourself that way, it's like, people talked about me this way, so that's why now I tell myself, oh, because of XYZ. And I'm better for it now, because I feel like it's allowed me to become who I am now, because of the fact that I had to deal with that, and because of the fact that I was really struggling in that time. And now I feel like where I am, it makes me better, because I know that in the moments when I do start talking down on myself, like, to just be like, no, why are you doing that to yourself? Like, you need to stop doing that. You need to stop listening to the bully in your head that keeps telling you that you don't get this opportunity because of your disability, or that person doesn't like you because of your disability. Like, at the end of the day, my disability isn't something that I chose. I didn't choose to be blind. And I think that people forget that. And I think a lot of the time when people say shit about me, it's because of the fact that they've never, encountered a blind person and had an interaction with a blind person. And I think that knowing that my disability is a part of my life and it's a part of who I am, even me saying that sentence is different from what I used to tell myself at 13 and 14 and 15. And in, basically throughout my teenage years, it's different, because that's not the type of person I was at that point, and I wasn't telling myself those things. And I think that for anybody that is being bullied right now, or that has been bullied, and if you are feeling the same way that I feel, just know, and I hate saying this because it's like so fucking cliche, like, oh, you're not alone, but it's true. I feel like that's something I wish I learned at that point in my life, that I wasn't alone, that I'm not the only person being bullied. Who keeps knocking on the fucking wall? And that I'm not the only person that has been bullied or is dealing with a bully or multiple ones. But also, like, to people out there that listen to this and watch this, like, the truth is, it's sad, but if you can figure out a way to work past it, I recommend, like, in this moment where, let's say you are being bullied at this point in time, you know, try to get a, I can't fucking talk. Try to find a way where you can start building up your own little toolbox of things that will help you, you know, because once you move forward, you don't want to be stuck with that mindset of people telling you all this bullshit about the things that they see of you. And the truth is, like, people are like, oh, when people bully, it's just a reflection of themselves. And I think that is definitely true. But I think that, you know, we can be our worst bullies. We can be our worst critics. And I think that that's always such a difficult thing to deal with as well, because we should be showing ourselves love. We should be caring for ourselves. We should be, you know, telling ourselves that we are worth it and that we're beautiful, and that whatever it is that someone sees in us isn't what we need to see in ourselves, because we know ourselves better. And I think that Gabby at 10 years old, she didn't know that. She didn't know that, you know, she was gonna grow up and do all these things that a lot of her bullies said that she would never be able to do. And so whatever age you are now, I know a lot of people that listen to the podcast are like between 18 and 24 and a little bit older. But even still, if you were bullied years ago and that mindset is still with you, I think it's important to start developing ways of navigating through that, instead of just like adding to it and you know, overthinking it the way I do, because I wish that was something that I was able to do years ago, but the truth is I wasn't able to. And I think that now all I can do is just move forward and know that part of me will forever be the little girl that was bullied, but I'm also at the point now where I want to be the person that she needed in that time, to tell her that, I'm sorry, I kind of get emotional because, you know, to tell her that, like, it's okay, and that she would be doing wonderful things, and that she would be, you know, making people happy and sharing stories and moments with other people. And also that, like, it's like we're always gonna have that part of us that was that little girl or little boy that was bullied. But I think now that I'm older, seeing, you know, thinking about that little girl, thinking about me at that point in my life, and knowing that these people hated me so much to the point where they wanted to say everything in the book that they could about me, clearly just goes to show that I'm here for a purpose, and that, like, even though I was bullied, I still have something to show to the world, and I am worth it. And I think that, to be honest with you, it's taken me many years to be able to sit here and tell you that those words that I just said, because for a very long time I didn't see myself as being someone worth it of anything. I didn't think that I was, you know, and honestly, like, the me feeling worth it, like, that's much better. But I think I grew up, like, telling myself I was too much of a burden and this, that, and the third, and that's still occasionally something I experience in my life. But at the same time, I feel like I'm better because of the fact that it was a journey. It wasn't just, you know, simple for me, and I had to learn along the way of what is mental health, what is self-care. Like, I've talked about it on this podcast before, and I think that learning it by myself, you know, no one ever taught me growing up what mental health was. No one talked about anxiety. No one talked about depression. No one talked about panic attacks. Like, this wasn't discussions that were had. And I think now I want to be able to be the voice to help other people that may be experiencing that, or the people that, you know, are from those cultures where mental health isn't something that is openly discussed. And so that's why, like, when people are like, oh, you're a motivational speaker, like, it's like, no, people need that in their life. You know, it's hard for people to motivate themselves. It's really hard. Like, it's hard for me to motivate myself. And so I think telling myself that I'm worth it is something that I had to learn how to be able to comfortably say to myself. It wasn't something that I just poof overnight was able to easily say it and say those words. But I'm forever growing. I'm forever working on myself and trying to be a better person bit by bit. And I think that now, to all the bullies that I did have back then, truthfully, you can go f*** yourself, because I'm proud of who I am. And I'm proud that in many ways, I feel like I'm so happy for myself. Even though there's seasons that may be a little bit difficult for me, I think that I feel good about where I am. And I feel like I've learned how to love me better. And it's not 100%, but I'm a work in progress. And I feel like it's taken me a very long time to feel good to even openly talk about my feelings, to openly talk about my mental health, to openly share things with people that were vulnerable moments in my life, because I never was someone that was openly, you know, comfortable sharing those things. Of course I was vulnerable, but I was secretly vulnerable. Like I'd you know, I'd cry when I'm in my own room, or I'd, you know, have those feelings by myself, but I wouldn't share those openly with people. And a lot of people now tell me, like, it's so different to have those discussions with me because of the fact that I was never able to say those things out loud to myself or around other people. And I feel like so many people tell me too, like, I've helped them because now they feel comfortable coming to me to talk about mental health and to talk about, you know, meditation and self-care and what that looks like for them. And so I feel like in many ways the bullying situation wasn't great, but I feel like it helped me in so many ways to be able to learn how to really, like, show up for me and to also show other people love. And so I just want to remind you that, you know, you are going to grow. You are going to show people that you are so much more than what they think you are. But at the same time, like, start trying to figure out ways that you can really have, like, a little strategy for when your mindset goes back to the moment when someone said something really negative about you. And just know that there are resources available, and I will link them in the show notes below and on the YouTube channel. It's also on my Instagram at mindful.minute_. But I'll link some things down below so that you do have resources to help you and to support you. And so I just want to say that now it's only for me, it's really just a matter of, like, telling myself loving things and being kind to myself. And I'm not gonna sit here and say, like, it doesn't happen. It does happen. I'm not a perfect person, but I think I do sometimes go back to the negative things. But I also have my days where I know that I am worth it, and I know that I'm worthy, and I know that, you know, I'm becoming a better person. And so I just wanted to share this with you all, and just let you know, like, this is just what it is and what it was. So thank you all so much for listening and watching, and thank you for supporting me. And I'll link the YouTube channel down below, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.